a lot of components that may go to waste eventually, and you might want to just run the system to the ground and put together a whole new system together, and then you have an entire computer that you can give somebody, or you can use that computer for something else. Okay, if you have a top-of-the-line gaming system today, I would say in 5 years that will still be a very reasonable computer for general use. It may not be able to run all the latest games anymore in 5 years, but if you just want to run a web browser, Office, programs and so on and so forth, I'm pretty sure that system will still be capable of doing that. So that's the reason of not to upgrade, is just to keep the system the way it is and run it to the ground until it does not do what you want it to do anymore, and then you give the entire system to somebody else or use it for some other purposes. Use it as a file server. It doesn't take a lot of processing power to become a file server. And here is basically what you can do, or how you want to write the report, or formats, in terms of formats. You can use a word processor. If you use a word processor, you want to save it in one of these 4 formats. Doc, DocX, and RTF are typical Microsoft Word formats. If you use OpenOffice, you should save it in ODT format. Okay, there are older versions of formats. ODT is the latest one, and I want that format. If you use a spreadsheet, which is a reasonable approach to this particular assignment, you can save it in XLS, XLSX, or ODS format. The first 2 are Excel formats, and the last one is an open office format. So I leave the entire, the format of the report up to you guys. Some people have already turned in a mock-up report using Excel spreadsheet. Looks fine. Excel is really good because it is a table type of thing. So for comparison, it's great. I mean, you list alternative 1, alternative 2, or you can look at it sideways, and then you have the columns to specify how they compare with this specification, and so on. And you can use different sheets on different topics, okay, different components and so on and so forth. So it is up to you to choose. Any questions about this? I could have done this in HTML or even plain text, but that may not be suitable for everybody. If you want a challenge for yourselves, type this report in HTML, but only use Notepad. That would make it a really reasonable challenge, especially with all the tables and including the images and whatnot. That would be interesting. And there's no need. Yep, go ahead.
We have to do an oral presentation on this, right?
I'm going to make it. I will probably make it so that you don't have to do the oral presentation on this one,
okay.
But you do have an oral presentation at the end of this class.
Yeah.
But that will be a topic of your own
Yeah.
choosing, so you might want to start thinking about that as well.
I already have that one.
Okay, the presentation is not going to be very long. I mean, you only have like 2 to 3 minutes per student to do your presentation, because we have a class. I think we still have about 30 plus students in the class, which means I have to spend at least 1.5 class sessions just for the student presentations. So that means I don't really have that much time for like a 4-minute or even 5-minute presentation per student. So I think your challenge is not how do I fill up 2 or 3 minutes. Your challenge is going to be how do I condense the stuff that I want to talk about into 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, condensing a lot of times is more of a challenge than finding fillers to fill it up the 2 to 3 minutes. So I will give you guys more information about the presentation. It's already on the website itself, but I will go ahead and refine that so that you guys know exactly what you should do with the presentation. Okay, but you should start to think about it. Okay, think about something that you like to do on a computer that you want to share with the class. It doesn't even have to be like a desktop computer. If you want to show us a trick of how to do something with your iPhone or your Android phone, go ahead. If you want to show me how you can install Linux, and just run plain old Linux on your Kindle, go ahead. I mean, those are the stuff that we can talk about in this class. And yes, it is possible. The latest Kindle from Amazon.com is actually Linux powered. Okay, so Linux, basically it's a Linux box. And someone was able to put Ubuntu on a Kindle and just run Linux in general using a Kindle.
I got a Kindle, that's pretty neat.
Yep, the Kindle is really neat. I have a Kindle app. Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about, when I talk about, stuff that I want to, show you guys in the class. I installed a Kindle app on my phone. It's an Android phone. You can also install a Kindle app on iPhones too. Do most of you have a phone that's either an iPhone or Android phone? No?
I have a
Okay.
smartphone.
You have a smartphone? You do not? Or do?
I do.
Okay. Do you know what it is?
Curve.
Do you know what operating system it uses? Is it a BlackBerry?
BlackBerry.
I think the Kindle app is also available for Blackberries. Okay, but anyway, the point is you don't have to buy a Kindle to just to experience what it is like to have an ebook reader, because you can install the app on a regular smartphone. Okay, next time you have to buy a book, okay, especially if it is not a very expensive book. Let's say you're buying a paperback novel, which is typically less than $10. Try to buy the electronic version and put it onto your cell phone and see how well you like the ebook type of idea. I personally like it a lot. Okay, just because I don't have to take a book with me, and it has bookmarks. You can also add notes to the book content itself, and even on the screen this tiny. I mean, my phone is really on the low end, with a small screen and all that. I can read the book just fine, with a small screen like that. And the best part is I don't need to buy an additional device to read the book. Okay. Now the next question is, okay, but let's just say that I like the idea of an ebook reader, but I don't like the small screen of my cell phone, and now I have bought the book, it's already on my cell phone. Does it mean that when I buy a Kindle, I have to pay again if I were to put that book on the Kindle? The answer is no. Okay, you can actually install Kindle for PC, Kindle for iPhone, Kindle for Android, and so on and so forth. As long as you make all of those devices to register to your Amazon.com account, you can actually install the same document on every single installation of Kindle. And the best part of that is, let's say on my cell phone, I read up to chapter 17. Then I got home, and I have my PC, which has a much bigger screen for reading stuff, and I open up the Kindle for PC. Guess what? It will synchronize. It will go to chapter 17, exactly where I left off. All the notes that I put in here, all the bookmarks that I put in here, will also be on the PC by the time I start up the PC version of Kindle. So I think that is pretty neat, because that means if you are if you're on the go and you have a little Kindle device, you can read it on the Kindle. When you get home, you have a big PC, big screen. You can read the same book at exactly where you left off from the Kindle device.
Wow. How do you spell that?
Kindle, Kindle, Kindle.
Okay.
And obviously, I probably indirectly own some stock in Amazon.com, indirectly, through the mutual funds and whatnot. But I probably own the same amount of stock with, Barnes and Noble or Borders and so on and so forth. So I don't have any particular affiliation with Amazon.com. It's just that I'm just sharing my experience with Amazon.com and the Kindle, reading device. Does anyone else want to share any other stories regarding ebook readers? And no? Well, let me ask you guys this question. How many textbooks are available in ebook formats?
I found I bought 4 books so far, 4 textbooks, and only one of them was not available. It was the workbook is the reason it wasn't available.
Okay. How about calculus classes? I know some of you are taking calculus classes. Can you find ebook versions of the calculus textbooks? No one knows, or no one has tried. Because that would be useful, because the calculus textbook is pretty thick, right? So if you can find the ebook version, you put it into the ebook, reader, which is half a pound in terms of weight, and it's only about this thin. Think of a pencil. Okay, this is thicker than the ebook reader.
That was probably like, what, $100 or something?
The Kindle?
The actual textbook itself.
Yeah, the textbook itself is more than $100. It was $100 when I was in college. So these days, I'm pretty sure it's,
But the ebooks are usually a little bit less than
Yep.
the actual textbook.
Yep.
How much would the device cost plus?
A Kindle is $140. If you just buy the most basic version of Kindle, it is $140. If you lose the ebook reader, you can. There you go. He has a. Is that the Kindle? Mm-hmm. Yep. Can I
Yeah.
check in and just kind of show the class? Sure. Thank you.
I guess 134 too.
134. Yeah. So this is basically how thick the device is, and you can see that we already have a page of information on it, and this is just using the projector's light, and you can see how well it projects compared to like real paper. I'm just going to get a real book here, flip to a certain page, so that you can compare the contrast under just regular room lighting. It is not as reflective as a piece of paper, but it comes pretty close. You can read it under you can read a Kindle under bright sunlight sunlit conditions, and in fact that is one reason. Thank you. In fact, that is one reason why I want to install the app on my cell phone, because I like to read in complete darkness. So I use that, and that's why I do not use a Kindle, because with a Kindle you need external lighting to read something. But on my cell phone, it is already backlit, and all I have to do is to plug it into a USB charger, and I don't have any power issues to deal with. Yep.
Barnes & Noble also has a ebook reader, the Nook.
Yep. Mm-hmm. The Nook.
And with the Nook, they actually have their textbooks all on ebook. Any textbook that they offer usually is also
Okay.
in an ebook with the Nook.
Yep. So there will be a standard war at some point, between Amazon and Barnes and Noble, because the devices are specific to that particular distribution channel, so that
And they also have the application for your PC for the
can come in handy. Yep. Unfortunately, they don't have any ebook reader. The Kindle as a program is not available for Linux, even though the Kindle device itself is Linux based. So I don't get that part. Yep.
I read that the Kindle also uses its own format. Amazon has its own format for ebooks. So if you download ebooks from Amazon, you have to use the Kindle or the Kindle app. Whereas Barnes & Noble has a, I forget which one it is, but it's
EPUB.
EPUB, yeah.
Yep.
You can download them in EPUB, so any ebook device or application can read it.
I think the difference only is important when it is DRM'd. If it's not DRM'd, I think the Kindle format can be read by open source book readers. So I think they conform to one of the standards of existing ebook formats. Okay, so here we are going to continue to talk about your project, how it will be graded. Okay, as much as I like to grade submissions that are black and white, not in terms of color, but in terms of the content, this report won't be very black and white. In other words, there's no absolute correctness, and I guess something can be absolutely wrong, but in terms of being absolutely right, sometimes it's just okay, does it do what you want the system to do? I mean, that's the question. Furthermore, this is not an English or writing class, which means I will not be grading based on English paper criteria. Okay, sentence structures, not important. Punctuation, not that important, but only to the point that does not, interfere with how I read your report. Okay. However, this report is an assessment, and I have to grade it based on the learning objectives of cisc310. Okay, so you have to understand the system components, how to evaluate, the components, and so on and so forth. Particularly, the report will be assessed based on how the material discussed in the class are understood and applied. And we have spent, 2-3 weeks, on this particular thing. So the